It's Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons, and my other partner, my partner in New England Football Journal, Kevin from Gillette Stadium, where the Steelers and gentlemen, I like to say, and a lot of my friends make fun of me for this, let's jump right into it. That this was a bad loss, John. There's no other way to put it. You offensively, they struggled out of the gate. Defense struggled, gave up two early scores. Then they settled down, start playing better in the second quarter, really shut this Pittsburgh offense down the rest of the way until that last drive they had that they scored. But the story here is the 5 turnovers, 4 fumbles, 1 interception. When we talk about teams giving games away, the Patriots literally gave this game away.
Yeah, John, this morning when I woke up, I found a dead skunk out in front of my house, and that thing didn't stink as bad as the Patriots ball security today. Like, it was brutal today. And you look at, we've talked all along, like, from really going back to Drake May's very first start against Houston last year, ball security was the biggest thing we've been talking about. And obviously, Stevenson has 7 fumbles last year, the most of any running back. Drake May's given you a turnover a game last year. And so far, entering the game this year, you had the 1 interception against the Raiders, which was arguably the biggest play of that game. But then last week, you have no turnovers. Stevenson has a really good game, and you win. And then today, not only did they have 5 turnovers, John, there was a couple dropped interceptions in there as well. It could have been worse than it, and one of them was on the same drive as the Stevenson's first fumble. But still, they could have had more than even 5 today. And you look at the timing of them. It's never good to turn the ball over, as we've said. But how many times last year did we see interceptions either in the end zone or fumbles in the second half of games? We saw an interception in the end zone today and a fumble at the 1-yard line. Even if you kick field goals on both of those possessions, we're talking about 6 more points on the board. So it wasn't just the 5 turnovers. It was the timing of them. And it was that, Gibson had the 1. But other than that, it was the usual suspects from a year ago. So it's just deeply, deeply frustrating when it came to ball security today, because you could make the case Patriots dominated a lot of this game, had more yards, moved the ball well, played well defensively, yet 5 turnovers, just brutal.
Yeah, to that point, you had time of possession was 33-26, dominated the game. I thought the defense played out of their mind after that first drive for the most part. To your point, it's the timing. It's at the goal line. It's the interception in the end zone. Let me ask you guys before we get any further, the 3 straight passes down at the goal line. I didn't love it. You had all 3 timeouts there. Would you guys have ran the ball at any point there?
Yeah, I would have run it at least once. I'm never a proponent of either running it 3 times or throwing it 3 times. You need to have some balance. But to answer your question, yeah, I think I would have thrown it at least – I would have run it at least once. And the fact that they didn't, I thought was pretty interesting. And after the game, Vrabel talked about that, and he talked about the fact that – he talked about the personnel they were in and the fact that they liked what they saw there with that personnel and throwing the ball. But certainly at least on first or second down, you could have run it in that sequence there, and I would have been okay with it. The fact that they didn't run it at all, I'm with Kevin. I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I would have run it probably on the first down there because you get a penalty, then it's 1st and goal at the 3. And I will say this, look, on 3rd down, Kayshon Boutte was open. Like, that play was there. And credit, tip ball, it was a good play by Pittsburgh.
Eccles did a great job sloughing off of Douglas. He kind of baited him into it. That was a great play on his part.
Yeah, but it was there. And so, look, I probably would have run it on the first down, Kevin, and especially adding, like, the fact that it was 3 timeouts, too. Like, you have 3 timeouts to work. You could run for no gain, call a timeout, whatever, throw twice, whatever. But, I would have run it, ideally for me, probably on that first down, and then maybe thrown after that. And we saw today, we can get into this, too. I thought Josh McDaniels was great last week. I thought he had some good moments today. But then I thought he had some iffy moments today, and that situation is one of them. I don't know how many times they could run that toss play in short yardage and have guys in the backfield either. They got away with it a few times. But I thought we saw, like, the turnovers are the main story here, but I also thought there was some iffy play calling as well.
What do you do about Stevenson? Because when Vrabel was asked about it after the game, he kind of hyped him up, but at the very end, he said, well, that's a long answer to say, I have no idea. So at this point, you do need him, but you also can't have that happen again. It's now 3 years of him fumbling the ball. As coaches, what do you guys do at this point?
Yeah, you got to stick with him. I mean, I've never been a guy in my coaching career at the high school or college level that believed you bench a guy for a prolonged period of time if he turns the ball over a couple of times in a game. That doesn't mean he's automatically going to go in the doghouse. All of that being said, though, if it becomes a pattern, and John, you mentioned this, he fumbled 7 times last year. If this becomes a pattern in the coming weeks, yeah, I think you demote him. I don't think he's your starting running back. I think you limit his snaps. Maybe you start to use him more situationally. But I do not put up with it if it's a prolonged thing, if it's a multi-week thing. But I don't think he should be benched right now. I liked what Vrabel said. I think he said the right thing that a good coach should say in that situation. We're going to need him. We're going to keep working with him fundamentally in practice. We're going to help him because he's got to be a player for us, and we've got to be able to trust him down the road. And I think that's going to be their approach. But like I said, if this becomes a multi-week issue where even if it's every other week, he's got 1 or 2 fumbles, you can't play him.
Yeah, the juxtaposition between last week and this week is really jarring, right? Last week, he was the best player on the field, right? It wasn't just that 55-yard catch and run. He ran the ball really well throughout that game. Again, we talked about it last week, John. That was his best game since late 2022. And then this week, he was one of the worst players on the field. So to answer your question, Kevin, I would start Antonio Gibson next week. And I know Gibson had a fumble too, but he's been, I think, pretty good whenever he's had the ball in his hands this year. And the Stevenson thing, I wouldn't totally bench him. You saw them bring him in as a pass blocker in certain situations after that second fumble, but I'm giving Gibson more of the carries. And it's tough because I'd like to work in Henderson more, but he had 3 penalties last week. Looked okay today at times, but not. I still think he's working his way kind of there. But yeah, I would start Gibson. I'm not freezing Stevenson out completely, but the 7 fumbles last year, 2 more today, and again, the ones today, one of them led to points early, and the other one took points off the board. Like, they're just killers there. So I would start Gibson, but I wouldn't totally freeze Stevenson out.
I agree. I don't think you can. I think at the end of the day, he's too big a part of your team, and he's a really good scheme fit in this Josh McDaniels traditional Patriots offense. I think you have to keep using him. You bring up an interesting point, though, John, in that maybe that is the move, at least next week against Carolina. Maybe you start Antonio Gibson. You then Travion Henderson's the next guy, and then you start filtering in Stevenson. But in my view, at the very least, you got to continue to give him a shot and work with him and give him an opportunity to work through this. But I think what you bring up is an interesting point about potentially starting Gibson next week, even though he fumbled himself today, and seeing if you can maybe limit Stevenson's snaps and maybe you get his head on straight and he starts to take care of the ball better. I do want to remind you guys out there, if you're watching, feel free to join the conversation. We would love to hear from you again. The Patriots lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers today, 21-14. Gentlemen, I want to ask you a question that I was probably going to save for later on in the show, but I'm just going to ask it now to kind of set the table for the rest of the show. Is this team where you thought they would be after 3 weeks?
So it's funny because I picked them to lose to the Raiders, beat the Dolphins, and lose to the Steelers. So technically they are where I thought they'd be, but what's frustrating is the way they lost today. Like, if they had lost today 28-24 and they had some good possessions and maybe made one mistake or some issue like that, but 5 turnovers. And also, look, defensively, they mostly played really well. But let's not forget the Alex Austin holding penalty on what would have been a 3rd down stop on the Steelers' second touchdown drive. Like, that was a pretty big mistake as well. And Austin had another holding penalty in the end zone earlier in the game. So all these mistakes added up that, like, this was a game I think the Patriots should have won by 10 to 14 points. Like, and again, it's the points that were taken off the board with these turns. They could have won this game 35-21. Just if they could have turned the ball over twice and still won this game 28-21, I feel like, or 31-21. It's all those points. So technically, record-wise, they're where I thought they were, but they have not looked quite as good as I was hoping. Because even the Dolphins game, they won. We talked about it last week. They made the key plays in the key situations. They had 12 penalties in that game. Like, they made a lot of mistakes in that game too. And it's just Miami is really bad. So technically, again, record-wise, they're where I thought. But yeah, I think this week coming up against Carolina is really important. Like, you want to look much better in this game. And that's a Carolina team, by the way, just beat Atlanta 30-0. Like, it's not going to be an easy one next weekend.
Yes and no. I did not expect them to be this undisciplined. At one point today, your first two drives, you had 20 total yards and 31 penalty yards. With Mike Vrabel as head coach, I thought that was never going to happen. So that's been surprising. But on the other hand, we all thought these were the types of games you'd be in all year. Now, I thought they'd win more than they'd lose, but they're killing themselves. So again, it goes back to Vrabel, and it's coaching for me right now. I'm genuinely surprised at the turnovers and the lack of discipline with this team. The talent is what it is, but these are the types of games, the 50-50 games where we all thought they might be a playoff team, that you're now losing because of stupidity, plain and simple. So that's what's more surprising to me. Not that they're in these types of games, but the way that they're losing them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with Kevin's sentiment in regards to the discipline piece.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
one
good
of the
point,
things,
Kevin.
yeah, one of the things we talked about when Vrabel was hired was that they were going to be more disciplined, that they were going to be better. Yeah, that they were going to be better in situations, and they haven't been. I mean, again, if 5 turnovers is bad at any level of football. I mean, that's if I cover a high school football game on a Friday night and I watch a high school football team turn the ball over 5 times, that's sickening to me at the high school level. Never mind the college level and the NFL. It's just inexcusable to me. And look, the only way you could fix it is to continue to work the fundamentals and practice. But at some point, the players need to be accountable here for turning the ball over, because Vrabel can, and we know he's a player's guy. He can sit up there and say whatever he wants and protect his players. But at the end of the day, they've got to hold themselves accountable with taking care of the football. It's just inexcusable. Yes, it is the coaching staff's problem, but we're talking about grown men here. They need to ultimately be the impetus when it comes to fixing the problem. And it's not just the turnovers. John, you mentioned the 2 Alex Austin penalties. I mean, the Carlton Davis DPI, which didn't end up hurting them, but was a horrifically bad call.
Yeah,
and I spoke to him after the game, and he said he got no explanation. He also told me that Vrabel emphasized all week that Clete Blakeman's crew calls DPI a lot. And that was a horrifically bad call. And this is where my concern is, and I said this to some people, other members of the media in the locker room after the game, that football in a lot of ways is starting to become like baseball now, where these officials don't feel like they have to explain to you why they're calling what they're calling. And it's really starting to bother me, because this isn't baseball. Football is a different animal. You can miss a strike. You can call a strike 3 on a guy that was, down and away and out of the strike zone, and he flips his bat and throws his batting helmet and rips off his gloves. And that may or may not impact the game. Here, a bad DPI call, that could have impacted the game there if they didn't get the stop. So you can't have that shit if you're the officials. They got to clean it up, plain and simple. And they've got to do a better job of explaining it. But you can sense the frustration there talking to Carlton about, just give me an explanation. What did you see there that led you to call it? And he didn't get one. But going back to Austin, yeah, those are critical penalties at key times in the game, and you just can't have it. It's a killer. And for a team, to Kevin's point, that's going to be in a lot of these games all year, that 1 or 2 penalties here or there, turning the ball over here and there, it catches up with you.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the final offensive snap of the game, which, look, Demario Douglas is a good player. You and I, John, were all over him when he got drafted in the 6th round. We're high on him. That was a brutally bad mistake. Like, if you just fall forward,
you go backwards. What are you doing? Right, fall forward.
And I want to make a note too, because this is Kevin's point on coaching. Earlier in the game, Mac Hollins did the exact same thing. I think it was on a second down, and it ended up being 3rd and 1. And I think the Patriots ultimately converted. But that's 2 receivers that did the same wrong thing in the same game. And in Douglas's case, it very well could have cost them the game. I mean, they were driving, they were moving the ball right down the field. Who knows if they score a touchdown? Maybe they go for 2. Maybe they kick the PAT, win in overtime. I don't know. Point being, at the moment he catches that ball, he could have fallen forward and he would have had forward progress to get the first down. And to go backwards, and that's a guy too, like he was coached by Bill Belichick, he was coached by Gerard Mayo, he was coached by Mike Vrabel, he's been coached by 3 different head coaches. That's a mistake that none of them would be okay with. As bad, like that was something I would have expected to see from the Gerard Mayo Patriots a year ago, maybe. But even then, like just to run backwards there to me was from a good player and a nice guy, stunningly bad mistake from Demario Douglas, and it ultimately cost them a chance to potentially win the game.
And on that play, too, after the game, Drake May said, in the huddle, I wish I told guys to just get it upfield. How does Pop not know?
Yeah,
it's 4th and
Stone,
1?
to your point, and sorry to cut you off, but you're 1,000% right. Like, why should May have to tell him that? This is a 3-year vet. Like, if this was some rookie, like you go back to opening weekend, the Friday night game where Omari and Hampton ran out of bounds at the end of the first half and the Chiefs got, okay, that's a rookie in his first ever game. This dude's a 3-year vet that's been a big part of your offense all 3 years. And May, and I think May is just trying to be a good teammate there, to be honest, but it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the other thing that really bothers me about that play is he didn't run the route deep enough. And some coaches will disagree with me on this. I have always preached to my guys in those situations, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, if we're going to throw the ball, you run 2 yards past the sticks to ensure that even if you're beyond the sticks, you could fall down and get the first down. And a lot of coaches will say 1 yard. And in my opinion, 1 yard's not enough. You got to clear the sticks by 2 yards, catch the ball, and then if you get tackled on the spot, bang, you get the first down. If you get tackled and then your forward momentum brings you forward, you'd still have the first down. So he ran that route right to the sticks, and then when he got hit, he went backwards, and then he tried to turn back upfield, and then he got tackled and lost yards. So it really isn't an inexcusable play. And it's frustrating if you're a Patriots fan because this illustrates why they are where they are and why they've been as bad as they have been. Because, again, it's these little things you have to do to be a good football team, to be a championship caliber football team. And right now, they're not doing these things. I mean, forget about the turnovers and the penalties. Vrabel was hired partly because he's such a good situational coach. That right there is a situation that they should execute every time when you have Mike Vrabel as your head coach and Josh McDaniels as your offensive coordinator. That should never not be a situation when you complete the pass in that area. And we know how much they attack the flat in this offense. When you complete a pass in that area, that should always be a first down. The fact that he went backwards is just inexcusable to me. And look, I appreciate May sticking up for him, but come on, man, that's a dumbass play. That can't happen. And it's great that May tried to show some leadership there and sticking up for him. But in my opinion, that's a situation where, quite frankly, and we all love Pop, he's a great kid, but his position coach, somebody else has to get on him about that in that film session because that's inexcusable.
And the play before that, if I'm not mistaken, 4th and 2, Drake May, kind of dives to the left, and he comes up short. What are you doing? Either get there or don't. So it's, to both of your point, it's all situational right now. That's the most frustrating thing about this team because that part was supposed to be better.
Yeah, and you know what? Today reminded me so much, guys, of those first 2 weeks of the 2023 season, right? You remember against the Eagles when Kayshon Boutte didn't get his feet down in bounds and blew a chance to win the game? And then you remember in week 2 where the final play was like Cole freaking Strange lateraling the ball to try to get the first down right in the same area of the field. And you just sat there and you're like, what are you doing? That ending reminded me so much of those 2 games. And that's again, Douglas is a vet. You should know not to do that. It's the same thing. And you can say the same thing about Alex Austin with those holding penalties. You're a vet, dude. Why are you grabbing a guy around the shoulder and making it so obvious? Like, you should and I know Alex Austin's a depth piece, and we've been high on him, and I think he is a good, player and piece to have. But like, those are things like you've gotta, even Drake May's strip sack. Like, why are you holding onto the ball that long? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's to me, like, that's the infuriating part. Is there's some things that, like, you like the Antonio Gibson fumble. I think Jabril Peppers made a great play there and knocked it out. Like, I'm not excusing Gibson, but it's like, okay, defender made a great play.
Why don't we get players like that?
Yeah, why can't we get guys like that? Well, like, the Stevenson fumble on the goal line. It's like, what are you doing? Like, and the McDaniel, and a good look. Those people that hate Josh McDaniels, you know how I feel about them. He's a great OC, and people that don't like him, I think, are flat out wrong. But those toss plays on 4th and 1 and 3rd and 1, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know how many times I looked at the game today. I'm like, what are you doing?
I think part of it too is that, I spoke to Jared Wilson after the game, and Jared made a good point in that. He said that they were moving a lot up front, and that's that Pittsburgh Steelers 3-4 defense where they slant, they angle a lot, they zone pressure you, they throw a lot of sim looks at you. They move a lot in that front seven, and they have not been themselves defensively the first 2 weeks of the regular season, but they were really good today. And you saw it up front. If you watch them consistently, there was one play where Cam Hayward came around on a TTE stunt, and he came free to the left, and he got to May. And the offensive line, by the way, I thought had a tough day today, especially protection-wise. He didn't really have a lot of time on a consistent basis. But as Wilson said to me, he said, look, they're tough to play against because not only are they talented up front, but they do so much in terms of their alignment, their stances. You're trying to read that stance in a certain situation in a game to try to get a beat on it. And then all of a sudden, guy crosses your face or he loops or he moves. So I think that they gave them a lot of problems up front today, and it showed in terms of pass protection, but also showed in terms of the running game. I mean, the Patriots had 119 yards rushing, but Drake May was your leading rusher, 7 carries, 45 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, your running backs collectively outside of that, Antonio Gibson, 7 for 28, Henderson, 11 for 28, Stevenson, 4 for 18. I mean, those are 3 talented running backs. Your running game has to be a lot better than that. And I think it illustrates as to why they didn't run the ball when they had the ball inside the 5 there right before the end of the first half, because I don't think they felt that they could get a consistent enough push in the run game because of what Pittsburgh was doing in terms of their alignment and their movement. And I think that did prove to be a big part of this game. I thought that they gave them trouble up front.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, John, because and it's funny, that stunt that they gave up for the sack looked eerily similar to the one from the Washington Commanders preseason game that Wilson and Campbell struggle with. It's something they're going to have to look. They're 2 rookies. They're going to have to keep working on that. It felt like Morgan Moses today. Like, I'll have to go back and watch. Felt like he did not play well at all today on the edge. Got away with a couple holding penalties that weren't called to. Gave up some pressure. There was pressure up the middle. The O-line was not, again.
He's, not to cut you off, John, he's saying all the right things after the game, but to your point, he's got to pick it up. I mean, you give him 3 years, $24 million. He's a veteran right tackle. He's played a lot of football in this league. He's got to pick it up. He's got to be more consistent. It's not even he's got to be better. He's just got to be more consistent. So it's great that you rally the guys on the sideline. It's great that you say the right things after the game, but I think he's a guy that he's the leader of this group. Let's face it. It's him and Bradbury and Onwenu. Those are your 3 leaders of this unit. He's got to do it on the field. I feel like talking about doing the right thing and doing the right thing, those 2 things don't always match up.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like, when he was signed, the selling point was stability, right? Because you're going to have this rookie left tackle, potentially a rookie left guard. Of course, this is going back to, before the draft, but you figure, all right, we're going to have a rookie at the very least at left tackle. We just want stability at right tackle. And I think you haven't fully got that. I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but he was not good today. And you just haven't got enough stability. And John and Kevin, you guys know this. What were the things we talked about in training camp more than anything else? With the O-line and the receivers. And we got to talk about the receivers too, because outside of Kayshon Boutte's big game in week 1 and Matt Collins' touchdown in week 2 and Boutte's touch, that group has not given them much. Like, they got very little production out of the receiver room today. Last week, they had a couple touchdown catches, but overall, the receiver room didn't give them a ton. Like, these two units that we were worried about in the summer, especially the receiver room, let them down today. O-line let them down today, whereas last week, O-line was great. You win. I don't think that's a coincidence either.
No, I'm with you guys. And on the receivers, Steph Diggs did not speak today. So at some point, and I know, he hasn't got many targets, and he probably figured he'd be a bigger part of this offense, but he needs to start answering some questions as well. Now, reporters may have missed him. I'm not sure, but overall, it feels like that group has been very underwhelming so far. Now, Drake may need to get them the ball, and he needs time to get them the ball, but I was high on that group after training camp. I really was. And John, we were there at that joint practice against Washington. I think that was their best day still. I think the last time I talked to you, I said the same thing.
And I think
feel like that's the best day the offense has had, maybe other than Miami, but it's a concern now that they're this up and down already.
Yeah, I agree. And I think certainly we thought that they'd be more consistent under Josh McDaniels, but that hasn't been the case. Old friend Lauren Gaudette joins the show, and I emphasize old. How do you feel that it seems like McDaniels and Vrabel don't seem to be sure of what they're trying to do on offense? Or is that a product of the talent, personnel, and poor play? I don't see that at all. I think they're pretty true to their identity and what they've been under Josh McDaniels. I haven't seen any variance there. I haven't seen anything to suggest that they're not going to play the way they've always played under him. I think, Lauren, look, you're a coach. I'm a coach. John is a coach. Stone is just here. But, it's one of those things. I kid. But it's one of those things. And Kevin makes good coaching type points, though. But in all seriousness, though, I mean, again, how much is this on Vrabel and McDaniels when you're turning the ball over 5 times? You can question the play calling, right? Like we all universally agree, you should have at least run the ball once there at the end of the first half. That's everybody could see that and debate that. But the turnovers, how much of that actually falls on the coaches? Okay, maybe you can argue they're not repping ball secured enough in practice. They're not emphasizing it. I don't know, man. I'm sitting in that press conference room today, and they have a list of their expectations, and number 2 on that list is taking care of the football and ball security. So it's emphasized. I think it's coached. I think it's taught. The players have to do it. But I don't get the sense, John, Kevin, maybe you disagree. I don't get the sense that Vrabel and McDaniels aren't on the same page.
I don't think they're not on the same page either. Like, I think the offense they're running right now, I think reminds me a lot of what they did with Matt Castle in 2008. And we talked about this in the offseason, right? Like more bootleg stuff and all that. The difference is Matt Castle had a guy named Randy Moss there and Wes Welker, so made it a little bit easier, and they had a good old line. But stylistically, it feels pretty similar to 08. I mean, maybe a little bit more shotgun stuff than 08, but like it feels similar. So my point is that I feel like if you look at these 2 games they've lost, the Raiders game, there was a bunch of wide open guys that May missed, and the defense gave up 9 plays of 20 yards. Like, that's not a Josh Vrabel thing. I mean, Vrabel defensively, sure, but that's not like a offensive coaching thing to me. And then today, I think the goal line play selection was bad. I didn't like some of the short yardage plays. But again, I mean, if May doesn't throw an interception in the end zone and Stevenson doesn't fumble at the 1, we're talking about a game they scored 28 points and they won. So it's like, that's where that's why I'm hesitant to say, oh, it's, Vrabel and Josh aren't on the same, because I just don't see that. I think it's so much about there's things there and guys just aren't making the play. Again, not that Josh isn't innocent in this and Vrabel isn't innocent, but there are things there. And especially too, like with Stevenson, it's your professional responsibility to make sure you're not fumbling the ball 9 times in your last 18 games. Like, that's all, you know what I mean? Like, again, Gibson, sure. And the May, like some of the May turnovers maybe can be coaching, improving his feel for the pocket and knowledge of the scheme. But I mean, I don't know. It's like Stevenson fumbled 7 times with Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt, and then 2 today with Ray. I don't know. Like, that's why I understand Lauren's question. I don't see it that way.
So it's funny. I actually think the only people that aren't sure of themselves right now are the offense. I think the receivers are unsure or not fully comfortable in this offense yet, which is weird to say because they looked really comfortable in Miami. So I think they're in their own heads. That's what I think. The players, not the coaches. Ultimately, it's like you said, it's on them. But No, I think they absolutely know what they want to do. It's the players that are still unsure of themselves and performing like it.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And again, going back to Drake May, right? A big part of the problem with this offense is the inconsistency with him. You're getting inconsistent quarterback play. You're going to see the wild plays in any given week with him. You're going to see the fast flash plays, but then it's that inopportune turnover. He misses guys wide open. He got a break when Chuck Clark fumbled, dropped, which should have been an interception because he overthrew Pop Douglas. Like, it's that stuff that drives you nuts with him. You see the talent. I mean, the talent is abundantly obvious. This kid, from a talent standpoint, he's the top 10 quarterback in this league. The problem is he's not consistent. The play is not consistent, and it is an issue, and it is a major issue. And until he starts playing at a more consistent level, we've seen that he can play at a high level, but until he's more consistent, this offense is not going to be as good as it could be. And you mentioned Stephon Diggs. This is only the beginning. If he doesn't start becoming a bigger part of this offense, we all know he will become a problem. There's no way around it, period. You paid him a lot of money. Not only will he start becoming a problem, but I also think there'll be some trickle-down pressure as well, like, we're giving this guy a fat check. You need to start getting him involved here. And I don't think, if one of my criticisms of McDaniels through 3 games is, I don't think they've done a good job of getting him involved. I really don't. He should be your go-to guy in a lot of your pass concepts. He needs to be the number one option, and he's not, and I think they have to fix that. They have to take care of that, because at the end of the day, ultimately, you're paying the dude a lot of money. You got to get him the ball. He's got to produce. Lauren checks back in. I missed the beginning offensive coaches meeting. John and I were talking offense. Come on, Goddad, clean it up, will you? I don't feel it's a great day when your quarterback is your leading rusher in a 50-50 type game plan. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And that's a major problem for them. He can't be your leading rusher every other week. Like, you have got to find a way to consistently run the football. Let's not forget, when Mike Vrabel was hired, what was one of the selling points, right? Physical style of play. They're going to run the football. They're going to play smart. They're going to be very good in situations. They're going to play good defense. It's an old school type of philosophy, but that's what we were sold on. That's what he did in Tennessee. We thought he was going to do the same thing here. We haven't seen that so far.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, like, when you look at, okay, Drake May's your leading rusher, that's obviously, like, inside, like, you don't want that to be like, you want his runs to be just like last week against Miami when he had a couple bootlegs for first downs, he had the bootleg for the touchdown. That's great. You don't want his rushing to be the centerpiece of the offense. And some of this too, I was thinking, like, when Kevin, you were talking, some of this is like where they're at, right? So we've talked about where they're at in their rebuild. They're relying on a lot of young guys, obviously, right? Like Will Campbell, Drake May, Travion Henderson, Jared Wilson. Like, those guys are going to have up and downs. I think what's frustrating, and what's been, to me at least, immensely frustrating, is some of your vets that you thought were going to be the stable pieces. Morgan Moses doesn't play well today. Stevenson has 2 fumbles. Last week, Robert Spillane missed 8 tackles. I know it was a game you won, right? But like, these guys that you're expecting to be the vets, to play really well, I mean, some of them have. Milton Williams has been great. Christian Barmore has been really good, right? I think Carlton Davis, outside of the DPI phantom call today, which wasn't his fault, I think he's been pretty good. But some of these other vets, like Stephon Diggs, and John, you're not wrong about getting him more involved. And I know he's ahead of schedule, but he hasn't looked explosive enough either to me. Like, some of these vets that you're relying on.
The only thing I'll say, John, and I'm glad you brought that up, not to cut you off, but has that always, I guess my question to you would be, was that ever really his game, right? Like, he'd make some plus plays in plus territory, meaning he'd make some big plays in plus territory, but I think when he was in his prime, or at the beginning of his prime, right, I think what made him tough was how he was a 3-level receiver, how, yes, he could stretch the field and make some big plays, but he was a factor at all 3 levels. You're not seeing that right now. And, yeah, some of it could be physical. I mean, let's not forget he is coming back from a torn ACL. But I also don't see them trying to get him involved at all 3 levels. unless I'm missing something. Maybe you're seeing something different.
No, and I get what I don't view him as explosive even as he was on Houston last year pre-injury. Like I don't think he's gotten back up to that speed, that quickness. And again, when he was signed, we didn't think he'd be out there till Columbus Day weekend. So he is ahead of schedule. I just think you're seeing him work his way back. And my kind of fear here is that he becomes like Jonnu Smith was. And you remember Jonnu Smith, they couldn't get it to work out. Then they had games where they tried to get him involved and there would be some promise there. Then he got hurt and it just never fully added up. So they should try to get him involved in this game against Carolina. Again, this is another one of those vets you're relying on that to this point has not produced to kind of offset some of those ups and downs of some of the. I mean, Kayshon Boutte's been your best receiver. And beyond that, the receiver room has been really quiet so far this year. And that, I mean, thank God for Hunter Henry. Otherwise, you'd have no passing game production, really.
So I think that in name only, the expectations were high. Like, even coming off the injury, the name Stephon Diggs, you're going to expect more. So there's that element to it. But look, I don't need him catching 60-yard bombs. I'd take both of your points. That third down play early in Miami last week, which was the old Wes Welker, Julian Edelman play, give me that on every third down. Like, that's where I'd like to see him be your main target, is those got to have it down. So, again, to both of your points, he doesn't need to be the, quote, one-on-one, that deep guy who's getting 13 catches a game, but give me Stephon Diggs on 3rd and 6 over the middle where I know he's going to catch it. So, you need to get him more involved, but maybe not to the way that fans might be thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. Ken Mattias checks in, the mighty Ken Mattias. The connection to Hunter Henry today was great with May, but the turnovers between Stevenson, Gibson, and May definitely hurt them. Yeah, I mean, Hunter Henry, 8 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. I do think it's his token big Hunter Henry performance, not Joe Henry. I do believe in Joe Henry, though. But this was his staple big game. He has one of those a season, I feel, since he's been here. And I think that was it today. Now, I'm hoping that he continues to stay on this trajectory and he becomes a reliable target for Drake May. But I suspect we may get one more of these during the rest of the regular season. But he's going to be in his usual 4 for 55, maybe a tutty, 5 for 60. But nonetheless, he was their best receiver today. Pittsburgh really didn't have an answer for him. I mean, he scores on that Y slam for the first touchdown. And the second touchdown, he just ran a seam route that he bent and he split cover 2 and he scored. Nothing special. Everybody at every level runs that. But on the other hand, look, offense, obviously we know the history with Gronkowski and Hernandez and past tight ends. But on the other hand, just kind of piggybacking off the Stephon Diggs conversation, he really can't be your number one receiver. Neither can Austin Hooper.
Agree.
It has to be one of your receivers.
Yeah, and one thing I found kind of interesting and unfortunate is they really have not got the screen game going this year at all. And that's a huge part of Josh McDaniels' offense. And you look at their personnel, Travion Henderson, Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, like these are guys you would think would be great for the screen game. And and even Demario Douglas, like they have not got the screen game going really at all. Like I can't think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of a significant screenplay they've hit so far in 3 games. And it feels like they have not attempted nearly as many as they have in years past. Like that to me, that's like when you go in, and especially this week too, like TJ Watt's on the other side, like that's a good Pittsburgh front. I was surprised.
I said that in my game plan. If there's ever a week you want to use those perimeter and halfback screens, this is the week. But to your point, John, it's not that they haven't tried. I think they have, but they're just not executing them. And screens are hard, man. There are years you have better screen teams than others.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and that's something, too, that maybe that's better for veteran players, right? Like, that's all those years we saw the Patriots draft a third down back and have him sit for a year before he played. Maybe that's part of it, as well, because it is something that does take a lot of practice and a lot of repetition. But I'm just surprised we haven't seen them attempt it a little bit more. Like, I don't know. I think especially today, May getting sacked 5 times. Like, I feel like that would have been a good way to make sure you get the ball out of his hands. And you just look forward. Like, all right, Carolina's defense just shut out Atlanta. I don't know how good Carolina's defense actually is, but they did just shut out Atlanta. Buffalo's defense is going to be really good up front and good overall. Like, you want to get that going pretty quickly, I feel like. So that's been a frustrating and concerning development to me so far this year.
So let me ask you guys this. We've seen what the offense looks like through 3 weeks now. When do we start to see more of either Kyle Williams and or Efton Chisholm? Because you know what's going to come up with among the fan base, at least.
And what are they going to do for you? I mean, are they...
Well, the Kyle Williams point, I think, is like the Chisholm one. I still think he's got a little ways to go, as fun as he was in the preseason. But Kyle Williams, like 1 catch for 8 yards, that is a guy with a great release package at the line, terrific speed. Like, maybe even try, like, again, I'm not saying to force it, but they don't throw the ball deep at all in this offense right now. No. And May has a good arm. Kyle Williams is a real, like, even if they give it a shot or two against Carolina, like, see if you can hit something in that game, because that's been an element missing too in this. Like, the screen game hasn't been there and the deep shots hasn't been there. And some of that's protection. I know some of it's May, but some of it's their personnel. Like, Mac Hollins is not going to blow by guys down the field. Diggs isn't going to do that. Douglas is got, like, Kayshon Boutte had the great touchdown catch against Miami on the 20-yard or whatever, but he's not going to run 45 yards by. So, like, Williams might be your only guy that can do that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them try that kind of in the next couple games or so.
Yeah, I think you wean them in. I still think you're going to win and lose games offensively with the veteran receivers on this team. They still have to be your number one options in your passing game. I do think you should start incorporating at least Kyle Williams more. But, John, I think you bring up an interesting point in that they don't throw the ball down the field, especially in plus territory.
I mean, have they done it at all this year? Like,
no, there's no vertical passing game there.
Like, I can't think off the top of my head an attempt they've. Like, the Stevenson 55-yard catch and run was actually a 20-yard pass that he ran for 30 more. Like, I can't think of a time where May stepped up and actually threw the ball 40 yards downfield. And, again, I know the protection. There's worries there. I'm not saying to do it all the time. But I don't know. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think of a single play that's happened so far this year.
No, that's why I brought up Kyle Williams, because at this point, again, we've seen what it looks like through 3 weeks. Something has to change. Now, I know Efton Chisholm probably isn't going to change much. I feel like Kyle Williams can do something for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think they're going to rep him more and wean him in, but Kyle Williams can't do anything for you if philosophically you're not willing to throw the ball down the field. And again, I get it. Look, fans, some members of the media, they get fixated with fade balls and post balls. But at the end of the day, you still got to throw a backside post 2 or 3 times a game in this league. You still got to throw either a traditional fade or a slot fade 2 or 3 times in this league. If you're running, let's say, 60 plays, 5 or 6 of those plays should be those 2 routes.
Just to show that you at least will try it.
Right, especially in plus territory. And so, yes, I think that they will start to wean those guys in more. You saw Kyle Williams play today. But, again, there's also got to be a willingness there to do it. And to your point, John, it just hasn't been there. There's just no willingness to push the ball down the field. The other thing is, one of the reasons you draft a Travion Henderson is that explosive big play ability. You haven't been able to manufacture those big plays in the run game or the screen game. How about you start to try to manufacture those big plays with him in the passing game, using him in the slot, motioning him out, and either motioning him past the hash as a flanker or motioning him to a stack alignment, freeing him up, get him the ball in space or get him going vertically and try to get a linebacker or a safety on him vertically and get a matchup you like there. They haven't done that either. And so you want to start to see more of those things because, to your point, John, they have a quarterback with the arm talent to throw the deep ball and get it to guys. Really, we talked about this when they drafted these guys, right? That this was a very athletic class. You're not seeing them using that athleticism right now at the skill positions. It's just not happening.
Yeah, so far the 2 most athletic guys they've drafted have been the 2 offensive linemen that have been playing that they've used the most. So you want to try to get away from that. Yeah, you can manufacture it. You're right, John. I think they should make an effort to that. But, I mean, it all comes down to, like, if they don't turn the ball over inside the 5-yard line twice today, they would have scored 28 points, or at least 20 and maybe 27. Who knows? But like, so like, we can sit here and I do think they should use Kyle Williams a little bit more, and I do think they need to use the screen game a little bit more. But we can call any offense we want if guys are just putting the ball on the ground. Like, I know it sounds simplistic, and I know we started the show with it, but I just keep going back to that. Like, you turned the ball over 5 freaking times today. And even in the game against the Raiders, the biggest play of that game was May's interception. They go down and score there to start the second half. They very well could have won that game too. So it's like, the turnovers are the biggest reason you're 1-2. It's not anything else like that. Like, there's other problems and the defensive chunk plays, all that. I get it. But the turnovers are by far the biggest reason that you're 1-2 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, you could very easily be 3-0 if you take care of the football. And you just mapped it out, John. This team could also be undefeated. So we can sit here and talk about a losing culture and they're not ready to win and they don't know how to win and all this other manufactured bullshit that we like to tell ourselves when it comes to a football team. Yeah, when it comes to a football team losing games. But the bottom line is sometimes when you lose because you're not doing the simplest of things. And if you did the simplest of things, it would reflect on the scoreboard and in your record. And at the end of the day, the number one thing you need to do offensively in this game is protect the football. And they can't protect the football right now. And that's why they're 1-2. It's really that simple, guys. I know a lot of people will say, what are you talking about? You're bloviating here. It's deeper than that. No, I really don't think it is. Sure, they have other problems. I mean, obviously, they still have protection issues. They give up the 5 sacks today. Defensively, they still have an issue with giving up big plays. But at the end of the day, if you take care of the effing football and you don't turn it over in your 2 losses, you're probably 3-0. Plain and simple. You play a clean game last week, a cleaner game, and you win. And that's the bottom line. We like to pretend football's rocket science, and it can be equivalent to rocket science when it comes to certain things. But it's still a game. And at the end of the day, if you do certain things within the game, like take care of the football, you give yourself a pretty good chance to win the game. I do want to look ahead to Carolina here real quick before we wrap it up. Panthers, you mentioned, John, pick up a 30-0 win over Atlanta today. Look, Atlanta is the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the league. They are infuriating. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy to be an Atlanta Falcons fan because that team is talented, but they're just stupid. They're a stupid-ass football team. And that's why they lost 30-0 today. You go on the road on Sunday Night Football. You beat Minnesota last week. You really dominate that game, especially your defense. And then you turn around and you give up 30 points to this sad sack collection of football players in Carolina. Give me a break. Atlanta's a bunch of frauds. They'll never play up to their potential. I don't think Carolina's this good. At the beginning of the year, this was a check-it-off game for the Patriots. I still believe it is. I think the Patriots should win this football game. I think they should win it by 7-10, maybe even 10-14 points. This is a game that we thought they would take care of business. I still believe, fellas, that they can take care of business in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to if they don't turn the ball over, I think they'll beat Carolina by 10 to 14 points. And if they turn the ball over 4 or 5 times again, then they won't win. And I know it sounds obvious, but really, like, I think they are like Bryce Young has come a long way to his credit, and Carolina is kind of trying to build something now, but the Patriots are better than them. So it's going to come down to, can they play a clean game? I mean, that's where we're at with this team right now. I mean, for years and years and years, they dominated everyone, and now we have to ask, can they play just a clean game? Because if they can do that, I think they beat Carolina.
By the way, to your point, Bryce Young today, 16 of 24, 121 yards. Again, he's had his moments, but he is what he is. He looks like he's in middle school, and he's limited in what he can do. So that's my 2 cents on Bryce Young.
Yes, Atlanta is a stupid team. You might also be a stupid team.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I am worried about next week, but I'm with both of you. They should not lose this game. The one thing I am worried about, though, and we talked about this after the Raiders game, you need to start winning at home again. This place used to be a very hard place to play. It is the complete opposite now. Teams love coming in here and treating this like a get-right game. So if you lose to Carolina at home, this might be a lot worse of a season than we all think or all thought it could be. Even before the year started. So yes, you should win, but you also might be one of those dumb teams at the bottom of the league too. You just can't out dumb Carolina next week. You have to win a home game, if nothing else, just to feel good, because you're on the road for the next 3 weeks too.
Well, if they lose next week, then Vrabes is going to have to bust out the Just for Men because he's going to have a lot of grace. And I mean, he's got quite a few already, and that's going to add to his collection. Lead statistician Lauren Gaudette checks in. I found the passing chart from PFF. For the first 2 weeks, May is 4 for 7 on 20 plus yard pass plays with only one touchdown. So there you go. PFF guru Lauren Gaudette checking in. She also adds 32 of 46 from 0 to 20 yards and only 5 passes behind the line of scrimmage. Lauren, thank you for delivering the goods here. We really appreciate it. I think that
speaks to 5 passes behind the line. So what are they? 5 screens and 3, whatever, 2, 3 get like.
Yeah. It speaks to what we were saying, that they don't push the ball down the field. And look, Lauren coaches. She knows the importance of it. We know the importance of it. You got to try to do it. And it's a catch-22, right? Do you wonder, do they think they have the kind of people that they need to do it? Do you think it's a lack of trust in the players? Or do you think that they've played the game and the game hasn't presented itself in a way through 3 weeks where they could push the ball down the field? I don't buy that. I don't care what week it is. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what the score is. You've got to be willing to push the ball down the field a little bit, especially in this league. And they're just not doing it. And we know that they can do it in this system. We've seen it.
Yeah, like the Raiders game, the Raiders played a ton of soft zones, and there were a bunch of guys open underneath that may miss. So like that one I could make, and it was in the rain. So like you're telling me, okay, you didn't throw a bunch of 40-yard passes in that game, fine. But like today, with multiple starters out, including Joey Porter Jr. on a bad Steelers defense, and you don't attempt any, like that to me was, and some of it was the protection. You mentioned it, John. They gave up 5 sacks today, right? You can only sit in the pocket for so long. Like they gave up 5 sacks and a strip sack fumble. Like, so you can't sit in the pocket for too long. But I think today was a missed opportunity to at least try a couple.
So real quick, we talked about Kyle Williams earlier. We know if Bill Belichick was still here, there's that whole, rookies have to earn it thing. That's not what this is, right? I don't think it is, but
I don't think so. I just think they're more comfortable right now with Booty and Hollins and Diggs, and Douglas. Like those guys are the vets, and Booty has played really well. Mac Hollins.
By the way, I think it's Boutte again. We got corrected today in the press box. I think he's back to Boutte.
So, Kayshawn has been very good this year so far, and Mac Hollins has had some nice moments as well. But I don't think that's it, Kevin. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I think it's more they felt those 4 guys. And look, Kyle Williams isn't going to come in and be an all-pro. It's just, can he come in and give you a couple of those routes down the field that you just haven't had so far?
Yeah, and Boutte didn't score last week. He had a Boutte call last week. He scored, but he did not score today. So I thought I would throw that in there. All right. Final thoughts here as we wrap up this one. Again, Patriots lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 21-14 to drop to 1-2.
Yeah, look, this is their now 16th one-possession loss since the start of the 2023 season, and as Stone highlighted, a bunch of those have happened at home. It's a really frustrating pattern. And look, they've had a lot of bad losses the last 3 years. The Cowboys and Saints and Colts games in 2023, the Giants game there. I mean, how many of them did we have last year? I don't even have to go through them all. The Colts game last year, the London game, you name it. It's just, they're not going to win all these close games, but Mike Vrabel said in his introductory press conference they want to take advantage of bad football, and in their 2 losses, they've been the ones playing the bad football, unfortunately. And look, they have an opportunity against Carolina. They're going to have an opportunity after that Buffalo game to play some teams that I think they're better than for a few weeks, but they got to get some of this really bad football out of their system. Like, they're not going to be perfectly clean. It's a mostly young team rebuilding, but 5 turnovers this week, 12 penalties last week, 9 passes for 20 more yards or more given up in week 1. It's like every week we have some like eye-opening stat that's bad football. I mean, it's like there's no other way to say it. That like this, they're the team playing bad football right now, and that's got to be like the biggest focus for them this week going into Carolina.
The most frustrating thing about today for me, and I said this to John pregame, this place was as loud and as alive as it's been in a long time. This felt like a big game today. You could have done a lot to sort of spur people on to rooting for this team even more this season and building confidence back in the fan base. You cannot lose here at home next week to Carolina. You simply can't, because people are going to start jumping off the bandwagon if they already haven't. And look, I know it's week 4, but that matters considering sort of the ill will that's been built up with this franchise for so long now. Again, you cannot lose that game next week after today. This was a special weekend here, and they completely pissed it away. So again, the home thing, it's really concerning to me now, and hopefully they do have a win next week here at Gillette.
I agree, Stone.
Yeah, no, I agree too. I mean, this used to be the toughest place to play in the league, and they had an aura about them during the dynasty years. I mean, there was an intimidation factor. Go back to that playoff game with the Houston Texans. They come in wearing Letterman jackets, and teams would do stupid crap like that to tell themselves that they thought they could come here and win. But between Belichick and Brady and the success and the banners, there was an aura here, and teams did not believe that they can go into a place and win. And I say this to people all the time, fellas. In football is the most psychological sport of any of them, okay? Yes, home field matters. The other team's uniform matters psychologically. Playing on the road matters. The weather matters. This shit doesn't matter in basketball. You're in a tank top and shorts. You're playing in a heated gym. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in a hockey rink. Yeah, the crowd might be into it, but whatever. It doesn't matter on a baseball field. But at the end of the day, in football, it does matter. And to Kevin's point, they have lost their aura here. They are no longer the big, bad Patriots that nobody wanted to come here and face. Now, as Kevin said, and I think he's 1,000,000% right, this is your get-right game. If you're the Carolina Panthers, you're not looking at this as a tough game next week. Sure, Dave Canales and his players might say that to the media this week, but they're full of shit. You're not looking at this as, oh, well, we got a tough task ahead of us going up to New England in late September to take on the Patriots. I mean, that's no bargain. No, they're going to say that the standard bullshit that they say during the week, but they know in their room, they know that this is a winnable game. They know that if they win this game next week, they can really build some momentum to the next part of their season. And yes, I agree with both of you. This is a must-win now. I don't like to throw around must-win early in the season because it's so overused, but this is a must-win. If you lose this one, sure, you've got some winnable games coming up, but then you've got a Sunday night game in Buffalo. And that game's going to be played. It's not going to be flexed out. So the entire country is going to see what this Patriots team is right now. Maybe they haven't up until this point. So it's a must-win. They need to win, but there is a silver lining here. This team could also be 3-0 if they take better care of the football, if they play more disciplined and more clean football. This team could also very easily be 3-0. Their 2 losses were close. A couple plays decided them. They get that fixed, they can get this thing going in the right direction. The schedule is still manageable to where this team could win 6 to 9 games still. Although I do think the 9-win talk, we probably should temper that talk now. This doesn't look like a 9-win team, but it should be a team that could potentially win 6 or 7. So we shall see. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Patriots Pulse post-game show. Again, the Patriots losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers 21-14. For WEI's John Lyons and Kevin Stone, I'm John Serenitas. We will be back with you next week after the Patriots-Panthers game. Until then, stay safe and enjoy your week. Peace.